city, I call it Rainbow City, or just a decorated UFO. I've heard that one, that the UFO, the Starship Capricorn, would hover above Jerusalem to deceive the people that this is the New Jerusalem. And actually, I guess they actually do have a spaceship called the New Jerusalem, and that may kick in and be it yet. We don't know. But either way, that website will prepare you one way or another for some of the facades that they have coming. Another thing that they talk a lot about is the star people coming, and these folks are nothing but aliens themselves. There's something star about them. These are fallen angels posing as aliens, posing as ascended masters. And what they want you to do is the whole thing is to get people to agree with them, to go to do a jump, do an earth shifts jump into a fifth dimension. You know, and in the fifth dimension, the fifth dimension is eternal time. It's all time is now. There's no past. There's no future. It's the ability to transcend matter. All beings in fifth dimension live peacefully and enjoy existence. So what they're talking about is an eternal time. You know, in fifth dimension, we would allegedly have light bodies, meaning that our carbon-based cells, using chemical energy from food, will have been converted into crystalline-based cells, which use light energy. And this is another one of their hidden aspects to a lot of the jump in health and changes in food lately, is because they want to change our DNA based carbon-based cells into converted crystalline-based cells. And so another thing, I'm going to probably repeat that a couple times because that's what they're basically trying to do, is get mankind to change and tweak their DNA. And there's twofold reason for that. One being that once a person's DNA has been tweaked and the extra codons in it turned on, these people become more easily possessed and controlled by the aliens. It has nothing to do about self-empowerment, folks. They could care less about your own self-empowerment and your own self-help. What they want you to do is tune your body into a body that they can control and possess, because they can't operate in this realm without a body. They need a physical form. And so that's what they want. They want your body. And so they have all these foolish people that follow them by the millions, hanging on every garbage word they say, just to make these people ready to be possessed and controlled. You know, in an eternal dimensional shift, and there's another thing I want to talk about, because you'll hear about these people talking about dimensional shifts all of the time. But, you know, you'll hear them talk about the coming Earth shift, dimensional shift, and they're not talking about the pole shift of judgment we talk about. You know, Isaiah talks about the Earth's axis being the Earth itself rocking to and fro like a drunkard, and describing a pole shift. And they're not talking about a pole shift of judgment. They're talking about this mass change that they want to jump from a 3D into a fifth-dimensional time frame. You know, mankind, we operate in a linear time. In other words, we are governed by the clock. We have 24 hours, and our days are added into weeks, months, and years. We are time-oriented, and our astrological times and laws are governed by the moon as it travels through the 12 signs of the zodiac. You know, our seasons change, and our days get shorter or longer, determined by the times and seasons we are in. And linear time is the result of the fall of man. You know, there are those that allege that during the original creation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they were not governed by linear time, but lived in an eternal state. When they fell in sin, their bodies were changed to accommodate an earthly existence, and the earth was then changed from eternal to linear time. You know, our Most High Jehovah and those in heaven live in an eternal state where there is no time, and that's what we would call the fifth dimension. You know, He knows everything that is going to happen on earth, because we are limited and bound to linear time. And since He abides in an eternal state of existence, He isn't and can already know what happens in the past, present, and future with those who live in linear. You know, that seems simple enough to understand, but now imagine that Satan, in all of his finite stupidity and never-ending ignorance, comes up with a scheme and a plan that if he can get back into the eternal state of being that he once was and before he rebelled and got kicked out of heaven, that he could change the coming pronounced judgment against him. You know, when Lucifer rebelled and caused a third of the angels to rebel with him against the Most High, his pronounced judgment for doing so by the Most High was not fulfilled at that time. He lost his eternal status. He lost his angelic looks. He lost his home in the highest heaven, being limited to the first and second heavens. But he was allowed to continue to live and rule over those who had rebelled with him to test mankind. And the Most High would and has used him to test his creation. Whom would his creation serve? You know, he wanted to test mankind. Would they serve him, or would they serve Satan? The people of Earth would be created and born throughout the ages with a purpose to make a choice. And Earth became not only a testing ground of his creation, but a battleground for the souls of men, as Satan would seek to dissuade as many as possible from even believing a God existed to worshiping false ones he established for them to get deceived by. They created religions everywhere. He's offering mankind the mentality that they don't even have to make a choice. Their lives are theirs, lives to do what they want to. Satan would deceive mankind, and God, on the other hand, would receive all those who chose him and followed him. You know, the earth is a testing ground. It has always been, or the Most High would have never allowed Eve to come in contact with Lucifer to begin with. Man is created with free will, and we must choose who we will listen to or follow and give our allegiance to, either God or Satan. You know, universal law dictates that for every action there is a positive and negative reaction. You know, it's this yin-yang effect. For every pro there is an anti. For good there is evil. For light there is dark. For reward there is punishment. You know, universal law demands balance. And there is balance in all things, and this is how the Lord wanted it. After all, he created the universe and everything in it. Because of free will, we have this universal law, which is basically God's laws. So in everything there is a choice, a balance, or a required action of negative or positive based on the actions we take. And that is how things operate in linear time. So back to Lucifer's rebellion and judgment. He knows that the rest of his judgment is to be fulfilled in the future, to be cast into a lake of fire, to suffer in torment for eternity. And he not only seeks to take as many of mankind with him as possible through all his various schemes, traps, and deceptions to the ages, he ultimately is trying to avoid it altogether as far as his own personal judgment goes. The overall plan of Lucifer in the last days is to eliminate all those who believe in a personal God and eternalize this linear dimension into an eternal one. You know, in this delusion, they believe they can escape their coming judgment, but they need the cooperation of mankind to do it. You know, Lucifer still thinks he can beat God. He lost the first time when he rebelled and took a third of the angels with him and got kicked out of heaven. And those in the eternal state already know he loses in the second. Sorry about that, folks. Thanks for talking so much. And he loses in the third. And then guess what? He gets the lake of fire for eternity. So what's the second and the third? Apparently, he gets 3 attempts to try and usurp the power of God, the Most High. All right, I'll get my voice back. I've been losing it the last couple of weeks, and I was just getting it back this week. Apparently not back all the way. I'll be all right. Back to this.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm choking here. It's like I can't even breathe. After his first rebellion, you can get back to the material I'm in, folks. His complete judgment was delayed to accommodate 2 more attempts to fulfill God's will in using him to test mankind. So he gets 3 attempts total. We know the one is past, where he deceived 1/3 of the angels of mankind to rebel against God. His second one is coming up in the last days, where he deceives the earth as the Antichrist, what we call the Antichrist. And his third chance will come up in the millennium. Now, God, being an eternal state of existence, already knows that Satan loses each time. Satan knows this as well. But what he thinks he can do, he thinks that if he can change our Earth structure of being in linear time into an eternal state of existence, that he can beat